things like this, especially rebate stuff, especially the programs that Joe puts out. This happens all the time. This isn't vehicle acquisition, going to a bank for a loan to buy trucks. That's why I think it's different.
And the things that we're talking about funding are on the capital plan, and all we're doing is moving forward a couple of months. I get it. So hopefully this will be a very quick open and shut case next meeting. But we're not done with this one yet. Okay, any more questions about the action before us?
You currently don't have a skid steer in the fleet?
No, they've been asking for the last 5 years, but I never found the right time to get one. We do
What
have
do
a
you
mini,
basically
we
use,
do have
a
a mini
backhoe?
excavator.
A mini,
They used to have
right.
all backhoes.
Right,
You're
nobody,
very
I
familiar.
know.
No one uses backhoes
nobody,
anymore. And now everyone's fighting on this mini excavator that we did a
Yeah,
really good
yeah.
job of using FEMA funds from and so like that. And the skid steer would be just like it. And if, you know the deal.
Yeah,
Even
no,
like
absolutely.
even
Right.
doing the sidewalks and crosswalks at the school, you could
Everything's
run it over there.
minis.
That's what they need.
Right.
But then you get these big, lunky trucks that just rip apart the things. You need something that's kind of small and dexterous to get through there.
So you have a couple of backhoes in the fleet. Are you going to get rid of a backhoe, or you're just going
Well,
to kind of keep?
one's
they're not even-
1987,
Yeah,
one's
so
1990.
get
I
it,
mean,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
better to keep.
I agree. I know. I have some.
I mean, it's
84.
worse to sell them than to
They're
use
worth
them
nothing,
because the
yeah.
Board of Ed uses theirs. We still use ours. The water department uses theirs, but they really always like the mini excavator because it's smaller profile to
Oh,
get
yeah.
in there.
Absolutely.
You know the deal.
I know. Absolutely. Yep.
Any more questions about the action before us?
I want a new one. I want that.
I'll take your old one.
Yeah, I'll take one of those.
I'll take your old one.
Order two.
All right. Hearing no other questions, any comments? Do I hear a motion? I do not hear a motion. So we will ask for the same feedback for this one here. What would be the effect if we don't spend the money? Like I said, to me, it's starting to feel logical that we would spend the money, but we want to see the math that says it makes sense. Alrighty then. Item H, ratify department transfer of $15,529.05.
So this is a transfer housekeeping item. So there's a list before you of transfers that have been made in various departments year to date, and a brief explanation as to why they've been made. I don't know if anyone has any questions on any of them.
These are all within the same department, right?
Correct.
Let's see, I got two questions. One, the election expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, there's two of them here. So, in a couple of meetings ago, or actually the February meeting, we did appropriate and transfer from contingency to referendum, $11,509.
Correct.
So, is there any connection between that and these items, or are these completely separate?
Well, the reason for the requested transfer had to do with the fact that we were going to have a referendum for the public safety facility, and we also will be having a referendum on the proposed budget, and they just didn't have any funding left.
Okay.
One of the things that the costs were high on was the ballots that they've needed for the elections that we've had to date, and there's only one vendor that they can use. And the other thing too, with regards to the other transfer, is we didn't plan on as much. I believe we only planned on one primary for the election, and we ended up having two. So there's just been more activity in that department. These items they took care of within their budget.
It's a single source provider for the ballot machines and also the paper that goes in the actual ballots. And believe it or not, the biggest expense increase, and you'll see this when they come in for their budgets, because there's a dramatic increase in registrar's budget, is the programming of the ballot machines that count the ballots. Because each time you have one, they have to say, well, this bubble means one for the Ds, this one means one for the second R, you know. Every time, in every town, that needs to be programmed. There's only 2 companies that do that. Both expenses are through the roof. It's all certified by the Secretary of State and only the Secretary of State.
I see
And,
opportunities.
what's that?
I see opportunities.
Yeah, great. Run for Secretary of State.
No, not
Yeah,
that.
the whole town, so why not? I see some great opportunities too, but again, it's a state program, it's a state election board, and we're kind of stuck with their single source, if you will, or their state source. So, yeah, I see great opportunity too, but it would come from this board or our registrars. But that's a driving cost in their budgets that I've observed over the last 5 years, that I've put budgets together. Those machines are very expensive. We still have the same machines. They're getting older. They are requiring more repair. But to get a new machine is 5 figures.
Yeah.
So we're maintaining these machines as we are.
Yeah.
We are going to go to 3 polling places. And again, we'll get into budget with more. But that's going to broaden some of the expense as well. The community center cannot hold the polling place for 2 districts during a presidential election or a state election. It's amazing over there. So,
Any other questions about the action before us? Hearing none, I'd like to hear a motion.
Motion to ratify departmental transfers in the amount of $15,529.05, processed for the fiscal year end June 30th, 2019.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? It's your opportunity, Jason.
Second.
There you go. I didn't want you to know for tonight. I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further conversation?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so moved, 500. Review of 2019 proposed budget.
nothing much to say. Your budget's in front of you. Have a nice weekend. We meet on, I think, on Monday and Wednesday? Oh, no, Monday and Tuesday. Oh, back to back next
I
week.
know.
Monday and Tuesday. This budget, you'll see, has some added things in there that we've been holding off for a while. There's an extra police officer included in the budget. There's an extra dispatcher. We are cleaning up budgets like the fire department's overtime budgets. You'll see, by the way, 2 firefighters have been added, also fully funded by the Ambulance Association. That agreement has not been worked out yet, but I baked it into your budget. Might be something that comes out if I can't make an arrangement with the Ambulance Association to fully fund this and do it the way I think is appropriate. But I also fully feel that they are engaged in this, and they also see a need because this overnight ambulance coverage is becoming a real issue, where we only have volunteers, and we're at the mercy of a volunteer answering a tone at 2 a.m, 7 days a week. And I think our town has grown and it's big enough, and the expectation is there that when you call for an ambulance, there's going to be one there.
When
And
you
for
go
it
to
to-
discuss those budgets, would you give us a little background? You don't have to do it tonight, but
course.
about East Lyme Ambulance. I don't fully understand their role, how they're funded, how they integrate with the emergency departments in town, and I feel a little ill-equipped to render.
Yeah,
you
okay.
know,
Yeah,
whatever-
we'll go through that a little bit. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So you'll see that, and we'll have full discussions on that. And we think we put together a pretty decent budget. Trimming when we can. You'll find amazement in Mr. Bergaz's departments that are see negative signs again.
He's right.
And truly, but our public safety is up. It's way up in some cases. So, and I fully funded the library's request. That hit the paper. I'm not planning a library expansion. Kind of dealing with maybe a misquote in the paper, but fully funding that we've cut their materials budget. For the 5 years I've been here, we've kind of decimated it, and they're asking for materials. I fully funded it. It'll be up to this board whether we continue the support for the library. They're doing a lot of good things over there, but we'll go over all that.
We haven't decimated it. We decreased the
Oh, we
growth.
killed
No.
That one item we've killed. When you
No.
take a look at what they used to get and what they get now, it's a tenth of what they used to get. Okay, but just that item, not the library. The library's getting $1 million. I get that, but because all the other increases that they're facing, they've had to shrink. That's the one thing they can shrink. Kind of like the one thing we can shrink is the library budget. That's the one thing they can shrink is their materials budget, and they have. So yeah, you'll see that in your budget books, and I think everything is pretty straightforward. I found it to be through the department heads. And Anna wants to finish us off.
I just wanted to make a note. As you know, at the last meeting, we approved some wage transfers from the payroll contingency into various budget accounts. So in the individual department worksheets, you know how like you always have a % of what the budget increases? Well, you'll see two columns in those departments. One column is based on the original adopted budget, and the second column is the % increases on the amended budget.
Nice.
So I think in particular that will probably assist you in making more sense out of the salary accounts.
Great.
So I just wanted to mention that to you. And then in addition to that, the budget summary recap sheet also shows a column based on the increase from the adopted budget and the increase from the amended budget. And with regards to the budget in its entirety, I just wanted to point out to you that in October, we did that special appropriation to both the town's budget, the Board of Ed's budget, and we also increased the education cost sharing revenue. So those are, you'll see those, those as well. So just as you're looking at it, just so you kind of have like prior knowledge of it, if you will.
Thank you.
What about teacher pensions? We're going to be gradually asked to shoulder that from everything I hear and read. Is any of that incorporated in this budget?
Well, you really just have an expense budget right now. I mean, there is a revenue
Well,
side
right,
to
there is-
that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I don't think did we put teacher revenue in the budget?
No, that's not what she got.
No, teacher's pension, I mean, did you put that into the budget? I don't think so.
I do not believe the Board of Ed included anything in their budget on that. At the time the Board of Ed worked on their budget, the information
Right.
wasn't available from the state at that point. I mean, the Board of Ed can respond more to that when they meet with you on Monday.
And it's still not a done deal, but it's something that feels like it's gonna be a done deal.
It feels like every year they put it in there, and eventually they're getting closer and closer to leaving it in there. I think
And
Governor
it's
Malloy
gonna
put
be
it
a
in once or
percentage, right?
twice.
They're gonna ramp up that's what the latest information is, right? They're gonna ramp up every year a little bit more, a little bit more.
That was the governor's suggestion.
Right.
The legislature hasn't even come close to
Right,
tackling
but
that
that's
yet.
not in our budgets.
No.
Or the Board of Ed budgets or any of that. Okay, and how about ECS for revenue? Is that projected to be less? I haven't looked at that. I mean, we just got 'em.
You know what, and
And that's a big chunk, which is why I'm asking that.
right, there is, so based on what we're receiving this year and what we're projected to receive next year, it is a decrease,
And that's in here.
yes.
All right, is there anything outstanding that's not in here that's substantial that we need to keep on our blotters on the side, other than the teacher pension?
I don't believe so.
How come there's a week lapse in meetings? We got 2 meetings next week, then we have nothing.
Somebody's on vacation.
You're out and I'm out.
No, I'm out only because we had a week, but you're out, that's why. I was gonna be here, so I just saw that I scheduled my vacation around that week. But I just wondered where the hole
Yeah.
came from, because you're not gonna be
That's
here.
the whole.
Yes. So I was going to, under board comments, ask for anybody that wanted inputs to the budget to bring them up then, but I think now would be a better time. If anybody would like anything to support the budget, such as call volumes, to justify the dispatchers. Um,
Population, I'd like to know what that,
I would like to know the cost per student. How has that gone up over the years? Because it seems like a couple of years ago, he was touting the cost per student, and then he stopped talking about it, which makes me think it's going the other direction.
right?
I'm just saying.
Student enrollment, I mean, I know that's, maybe you can communicate that to Jeff. Student enrollment, I'd like to know population in town, call volume.
I know one of the things the state's pushing at is trying to combine school districts, and they're doing it based on probate, board of probate, right? So that's why they want to put us together with Montville. But the question is, I think,
Well, there were.
yeah.
We have 4 towns in probate.
Yeah, I think there were
right?
3 bills, or 3 possibilities,
Yeah.
and,
It's not gonna happen.
and,
But I understand, but it's
Yeah.
just,
And
the
it-
question comes if the state thinks that we're gonna save money by decreasing overhead. It seems like the Board of Ed is constantly increasing overhead. So I wanna get some feedback from them about what they're doing to decrease overhead, not increase it. Any other questions that we want answered during our deliberation, or as we go through our different budgets?
So some information on the load on police would be helpful to me. We talked about call volume, that's just dispatch, maybe it's the same number, I don't know. Any trends in arrests or any data that helps us understand how we can best support them for their structural needs would be
Sure.
most appreciated.
Yeah, I know the police commission has that.
Same thing with
because
fire
of some of the-
departments and stuff, any kind of trend data is, because that just helps us feel more confident in our decisions.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, with the police chief and the police commission, he's reporting monthly to the police commission. Maybe he has an end of the year consolidated.
It is, it's on their,
volume.
it's on their site,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'd also like you to ask the police chief and the fire chiefs where they think there's some potential savings in their operations. I'm sure they're looking at that somewhere. I know times are tight, but just as a general matter of where are you looking at stuff? Where is there some gap that can be realized? Thanks.
Well, that will be your question to
Well,
them.
but if
that
you ask
night.
them that ahead
But
of
if they
time,
have
when
the
they come here,
information,
they're
yeah.
gonna be prepared, and I'd be
Right.
grateful if you do that. I mean, they work for you, right?
I hate to be a pain about it, but a few years of data for like the police and the population and
Yeah,
the
like 5
student.
years?
Yeah, I mean, not just
The
one.
yes,
I
because
mean,
the
'cause
student
you can't-
population,
There's no trends, it's
the
up.
student population every year, it seems like it's going the other way, and it's like, I'd like to see some
Yeah, good point, Jason.
5 or 6 years of data, not just one
Hmm.
last 6 months.
We've only had the chief on for about 18 months, so some of the stuff back before that will come from different locations. I might not have police information as much as I'll have dispatch volume, because we've always had a dispatch.
Right.
But that is, of course, ramped up with police. Now they do police. We didn't do
Right.
police. We used to transfer it to barracks. But we'll get you as much information as possible. And going
Yeah.
forward, we're building that data.
Yeah.
Number of arrests, that kind of thing, trends.
Okay, is there anything else that anybody would like to see in the budget for supporting data? And I think if you send something to Anna, she would be willing to flow it out to department heads if somebody comes up with something? Is that true?
Good move.
Oh, you're talking to the Board of Finance.
I'm talking to the Board of Finance that
Okay.
if they come up with something tomorrow
They'll
afternoon.
give it to
well,
you,
got it,
and you'll give it to
yeah.
X department head.
Yes. So if we want to know how many truck tires were replaced last year, you could get us that information.
Sometimes the questions don't come into our heads until
Yes.
we're doing the reading.
Yes.
So,
Write them down.
Okay. Just like it. All right. Any other questions about the proposed budget? So I'm not going to ask for a motion to approve it yet. I think we need someone to. Sorry. Last, discussion of bylaws. Has anybody put any thought into the bylaws? Anything they'd like to see added, subtracted, or multiplied?
I reviewed them, and I think they're written very well, and I don't have anything to add to them. Oh, I did have one thing.
I
But
felt the
it's-
same way when I read them, so.
Yeah, I thought I
read
had a
through 'em, I
minor.
said, well, they sound like they're pretty good, I don't see any issues, so.
Yeah, I wrote it on my other copy, because these were included in last month's package, I think, as well, when I wrote my notes on. Yeah,
Yes, this
they
has
were-
been included for a
So I
couple.
wrote, it was minor. But I don't have it with me.
Okay, so nobody has anything that they feel like they,
Well, actually, I have a number of things I would love to edit or change, but one does involve is based upon our town attorney's opinion concerning our agenda nomenclature. I guess we had, let's see, our board comment, more sort of open-ended topics that we allow there, and I believe Mr. O'Connell wrote a memorandum of opinion for us to use and as a guidance. And his suggestion is that, based upon freedom of information requirements, that we somehow change that, make it less open-ended. And he cited, a number of cases, basic requirements of freedom of information, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of, I'm aligned with him in my thinking, so I'd like to see a change. And one change I was thinking was that just perhaps don't get rid of the item, but just narrow it in such a way so that maybe we have something like chair or member response to things that do come up in public discussion, or next month's agenda items that may come up, that kind of thing, or topics of community interest that may come up, but so that it is less open-ended. So as I said, I'm kind of alive there. That was one area for me substantively. Another substantive area that I was concerned about a little bit was new member orientation. That's Article 6, where we're given a number of these sources of information, which was wonderful, having been through this process in the not too distant past, as John has been as well. But I was thinking of adding something, and that's something we could discuss at some point, where there's without having a meeting, but there's some sort of a conversation between chairperson or vice chair and the new member as to procedural things, such as, every month you're going to get this packet, and this packet kind of looks like this, and what's in it. Just a kind of a little, not so much hand-holding, I won't go that far to say that, but a little bit of a
Mentoring?
yes, a little mentoring. I think that it's, would be very helpful, and help bring that person, up to speed a little faster. A lot depends on one's background, what you've done for a living, how quickly you can get up to speed. But I think, just for example, Anna provides us with, documents A through Z, each.
I mean, if I may?
Yeah.
So at the point in time when the individuals who are running, any new members, someone that's currently not on the board that is going to run for the board, we automatically start sending those members the board packet prior to the election. Isn't that
Right.
correct, Karen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So once individuals that are going to be running are identified, we automatically start doing that.
but understand that people haven't been through this process
Yeah.
before, see pages full of numbers and go,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
It took
I
a year. It took
Yeah.
at least a
Oh,
year.
1-50-25, what is this number here? And it took me a long time to figure out what to focus on.
Yeah.
And I think what Ann is suggesting is that if we sit down with board members with the packet, any
It could
board
be
member
an
could be
example
anybody,
packet, yeah.
and go through the packet and say, listen, this is what you're gonna do, and we're gonna go through these agenda items, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna get to this director finance section, and that's where you should go through and circle the things you care about, and then just that general mentoring kind of
Yeah.
high level, And then once you have
Yeah.
that conversation with them, it's gonna be like, okay, and then they're gonna go through it the first time, and it's gonna be like, okay, now I got questions, because now I know what you're talking about.
Right.
So that's that
Yeah.
kind of having a mentor, having
Yeah.
somebody you can talk to. I don't know how you industrialize or institutionalize that, but each board member should have a mentor
Yeah.
that they can talk with, just kind of.
Yeah, I think I think it's something that'd be very helpful, in addition to all the, data that we get, all the many pages that we get, which
Yes.
is all wonderful, because that also laid a very good groundwork, reading the statute, Connecticut statutes, telling us about boards of finance, knowing our charter, et cetera, et cetera. But there's that one-on-one conversation that I think could be very productive.
So is there something that you think we want to change in the bylaws, or do you just think that that's something that we should do just to do?
Well, I'd like to see it in the bylaws, because I think you're addressing the topic in Article 6, and so why not just suggest that be,
Well, what would
some
you want to
approach.
add to it? Would you want to say that each new board member should be assigned a mentor to walk them through the processes of the board?
something like that? That's fine. It doesn't have to be a duty of the chair or duty of the vice chair, but you could have a volunteer other member
Great, yeah.
step up and have a little one-on-one. I think that's not a bad idea.
Okay. Now, I thought I saw in here, but I didn't see it when I went through it the last 6 times, that there was something in here that said that you can't make motions at the same meeting that a suggestion's made.
Right, so.
Doesn't that say that in here somewhere?
Yeah, well, if you go to the very end,
Oh, that's why I
Article
didn't see it.
9, under amendments, first sentence has to do with suspending provisions if we need to, but the second paragraph, the bylaws may be amended by a majority vote of the entire voting membership of the board. So that you need everybody for starters, and then only after the proposed change has been read and discussed at a previous regular meeting.
Okay.
So,
So that is
yeah.
something that I think we should change, so that when we have these conversations, if we go and we all agree that this is something we want to change, I don't understand why we would have to wait till our next meeting to make the changes.
Because if the public wants to comment on that, they should have an opportunity to see how the Board of Finance's business will be conducted.
and also, I think, so that when a proposed change or an editing comes up, that can be read and digested and thought about before we then go and vote on it, because it's very hard. I mean, just having done a lot of editing in my life, that it's very hard to just do that on the spot. It's better to see an edit and say, I agree, I don't agree, and then you can, more efficiently vote on it,
Okay, so then do you want to describe, do you just want to add a number 9 and say new board members will be assigned a mentor?
Well, so that's another, the process topic, how are we gonna do this? If I did have some other suggested changes, just general language cleanup a little bit, those are my 2 substantive things. But I was thinking it might, since we're in budget season, it may not be the most prudent time to, and Camille's not here, for example, we need to have all of us on this, and exist with the existing, the language of the existing, bylaws right now. So I was thinking that right after, we're done with budget season, that if there's any language change to something, we just draft that out, pass that out at whatever meeting that is, and then vote on that the next time. And if you, because I don't see anything earth-shattering, like I don't feel as though this is, like triaging all our problems, this is like, top of the list, but it's something that probably needs to be addressed, because we have that looming attorney's opinion, on top of some other things that we may have, want to change ourselves. But that I think should be addressed. It's either a yay or a nay, or a, I think it's hard having that opinion hanging out
But
there.
the attorney's opinion said that for the board comments, for the board comments, we can't discuss anything that's not on the agenda, because it's not appropriate if anybody from the public wants to participate in the conversation. And I thought that was pretty clear, and that everybody agreed that, yep, it's unfortunate, but for freedom of information, we can't discuss things that aren't published on the agenda,
Right.
because if somebody's very adamant about the fact that they really care about streetlights, they want to be able to come in and explain
Right.
that they care about it.
Right. So I think that's true, and I get that, and I'm in agreement with him on that. But I do think there is this, this sort of process that's happening where you have a public discussion item, and that's completely different from your delegations. Delegations come in, people may be in support of what's gonna be on the agenda or not and comment on it. But this public discussion, someone could, like, for example, Mr. Schultz has often, come and raise some issue, or others in town. So if you want to comment on that, it's not, I don't think that's inappropriate. And that's actually on the Board of Selectmen's. There's the Selectmen's response, I believe,
Right.
which.
In most, like like when we do zoning applications and planning applications, they have that on their agenda.
Yeah. So.
And then that you can,
Yeah, and it's very directed. It's
It's very
only
direct,
in
yeah.
response to what the public has raised in a, at that point.
or you can also talk about general, is there anything else they say that,
So is your question, you want the town attorney to determine whether or not that is an appropriate use of that time?
We could ask him that, sure, so that it's more aligned with, let's say, what Board of Selectmen do. Board of Ed, I believe, has something similar. Also, they can suggest a topic for next meeting. But rather than throw out the entire board comment provision, which we don't seem to be happy about.
Now, the board comment
Yeah.
section is a good opportunity for us to talk amongst ourselves about things that we want to add to future agendas and things like that. If we want to expand that to reply to public discussion questions, then we need to get somebody to tell us that that's okay. Because when I talked to the Board of Selectmen about the way that they feedback, I said, is that appropriate? And they said, we don't know, but that's what we always do.
Okay,
My request is that whatever we decide, it's the same on every board in town, because it's not right now.
Which is what I said, is
Yeah.
I would
Right.
think
Which
the
is fine with
town would
me.
have an approach that's common across all
That's-
boards.
Yeah. So I think we've identified this as something that needs some work. This particular item, I think.
Well, the thing is, each board has their own bylaws, so they can vote on whatever they want to cover in their
Right.
board comments.
Right.
These are our bylaws. There are not a set of bylaws that covers every board and commission in town.
I think what was happening with the legal opinion was that the board comment description as it appears in our bylaws is very broad. It gives the ability of each and every one of us on the board to, comment on anything, pretty much. And was getting, I think, over our skis with respect to the Freedom of Information Act.
We should have the right to exercise our First Amendment rights and talk about the business that I'm not gonna come up here and talk about Trump's position on immigration.
Sure.
But I do wanna I wanna have an opportunity to talk about business that we've conducted, about the direction, some maybe qualitative
Okay.
assessment about the direction I think we're going in, and this is the place to do it.
Right. Like I said, I feel as though there's something that needs to be there, both for that purpose to some extent, and also in particular for this very thing where the public comes forth, not in public delegations, but in public discussion, where someone has sat through the entire long Board of Finance meeting and wants to say something unrelated to the other items that were on, such as Mr. Schultz will do. And they're thoughtful. His comments are very thoughtful. So, and I think, and then we sort of like zip it up and leave, and when we should really be addressing him, and that.
Okay, so you're saying you wanna be able to give us the freedom to respond to board comments,
Yes.
under board comments.
Us to have the.
Public comments, under board comments.
Right, kind of like
But the
what,
question is, do we have to put that on the agenda first?
No, it's just
not,
comments.
if it's understood what if it's, like, for example, where Board of Selectmen will say, on their agenda, it'll say, Selectmen's response, and we understand that that is to the preceding thing. So in my mind, I looked at the, Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen, okay? So Board of Ed, has that, next agenda items or future agenda items, and Board of Selectmen has this other, definitely likes to address folks that come forward. So I think that's not a bad combination, but if we wanna run that by Mr. O'Connell,
Because that's, I
We
mean,
should. it's his baby at this point, you
his
know?
March
It's our
12th,
baby.
2018
It's our
comment
baby.
says
Not
that
his.
his interpretation of the law, which he is much more qualified than I am, he talks about that, this whole conversation that we're having, and he says in his memo, that same thing I said about freedom of information, says that if other people in the public want to talk about it, they don't have the opportunity if they don't know that it's here. And that's the way I'm reading his memo.
From the
Comments are different
zoning,
than
I'm not,
delegation.
I don't know these rules, but from the zoning and planning when I'm involved, they usually will not talk about anything that's not
But
on the
land
agenda.
use is different,
Land
because
use
they
is
can
much
have the
different, yeah.
public hearings, they're a
Yeah.
different animal.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah. But there are many possibilities of things that could be discussed
So
in
it says
something
board
called board
comment-
comments, and
Board
that's.
comments does not fairly and sufficiently apprise the public of items proposed to be discussed during the portion of the hearing. Such a hearing does not describe in any meaningful way the issue to be addressed under the item.
Yeah, so my suggestion is consistent with his opinion. It's consistent with it because if you had something like board, response to, or chairman or board response to public discussion and future agenda items, that at least, and some other descriptive thing, you would have that in there and would cover you and be clear. Like, what are you doing in that in number 5 or category 5?
So,
But
So
yeah.
his opinion is that if somebody makes it, absence made during public delegation and public comments to exercise his or her First Amendment right and make known his or her options, the request an item added to the agenda. So for your First Amendment rights, he's saying the way that you do that is you say you'd like to add an agenda item to the following meeting so it can be discussed.
yes, and that's always an option under
But-
freedom of
but-
information to cover
So what
yourself.
so am I hearing you say that I need to put an agenda item and specifically say what my opinions are so that I can talk about them at the next meeting? That's ludicrous.
I'm reading the town attorney's letter.
All right,
And
I'm
I'm-
saying it's ludicrous. It makes no sense.
So,
This is March 12th, 28. Oh, this is last year.
Last year.
I'm sorry.
So-
I'm like, this is just, you
Yeah.
just wrote this? No, he
no,
wrote this
that
last
was
year.
some time ago.
Yeah.
So my thought is just, again, I think that, we have bigger fish to fry in the weeks ahead. So I'm thinking in my own mind, because I, get into the editing thing, I'm thinking, okay, post-budget, that's a good time for, suggested language, or if there's something we want to run by the town attorney again, whatever. But, I think there's a couple of areas to clean up. I think that most things can always be improved upon.
Well,
And
this was just done in 17.
So
It's
if you
not
have
that old.
edits that you think that we should make, yeah, but it's also the first time we've had the agenda, the bylaws, so first time through, you'd always kind of expect to see some things that are like, well, let's tweak this and let's tweak that.
Mhm.
And
We
that
went through
part
that
just seems
when
like
they
a,
came out. That's what I'm saying.
that
We've already
part to
done
me-
this.
that part to me just seems like a normal evolution, that every year we said we're gonna review the bylaws and tweak them as necessary. So if you have edits you wanna make, I suggest that we make them, propose them,
Mhm.
because this has been on the agenda since,
Yeah, for a
Quite a
long
while.
time. Right.
so if you could publish your, make your changes, make us all copies, we'll all read it. God,
Do you want me to make a note and just put this back on the agenda for May,
the-
at your May meeting?
if we have to kick it from January to February to March to April to May, then that's what we're gonna have to do. It's been on the agenda for a long time. If we have changes to make,
was
then we
wages.
wanna make them.
No, we just put this on the agenda, because this is a year review.
It was February, right?
on the
It was
action
last
list.
month.